All right, welcome back to Be the Standard. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Nick Kumalatsis. He's, many things. He's a former Marine Raider, seasoned entrepreneur and business coach. He's been featured in Men's Health, Men's Fitness, Forbes. But I think most important to him, he's also a husband and a father. And, again, Nick, I'm not really sure where to start this with you, but you have your hands and your yourself involved in so many different things, whether it's the modern day night project, Squire, you got your Agogi program, Johnny Slicks, and all of these things. So the first thing I wanted to start with is what one of the primary reasons I wanted to have you on is because obviously the name of our podcast being be the standard. The four principles that we live by are setting standards, creating these unbreakable habits, executing, and then ultimately holding yourself accountable. And it seems as though all of the things that you're involved with are essentially driven towards growth, achievement, and it seems like you encompass all the same values that we do our very best to push out to our audience. So um, again, one of the reasons I became a follower of yours is because you know one of the things you discuss that I really enjoy is kind of the things that matter to men, right? And this cultural war or societal downfall, if you will, that's being brought on men and all of that. So I kind of want to start there because again, it seems like a lot of your focus in these programs that you're involved with are designed to turn men back into men and just create strong leaders for the future.
Yeah, I think obviously there's only two genders, right? So men are men.
Exactly.
but
I'm glad to hear you say that.
yeah,
We're glad we can agree.
but they're not. The problem is they're not holding the standard, right, of what a man is supposed to be, right? And I think that's where the problem is coming into play. And I recently been kind of opening up more about this of why there's been this pivotal shift. Obviously, when I got out of the military, I was 31, right? And I'm 42 now. So there's a big difference in 31 and 42 as far as a seasoned, I guess you can say father, entrepreneur, husband. I've now been, I guess I've now been married for more years than I was single in my life. You know what I mean? And
Wow.
and so yeah, I think as you get older, one, your priorities change, right? You start well, I say this if you're in this growth mindset, right? If you're in a growth
Sure.
mindset, if you're pushing the needle, if you're trying to become the very best version of yourself, then when you hit 40, you're a very different person. And for me, a lot of my priorities started to change, 4 years ago, in 2020, um, when COVID happened, right? And before then, and you'll probably understand, you'll probably appreciate this and understand this. When I got out and I did 12 years in the Marine Corps. Most of that was with special operations and force recon. And um, when I got out, man, I was like so done, dude. I was so burnt. I was like, listen, let's just live life, right? Enjoy life, make money, and not and skip all the bullshit. So when all the politics stuff was going on and all this, I was like, I kept my mouth shut. No one knew my political affiliation. No one knew my religious affiliation. Because, dude, like, if you're when in special operations, like you deal with this level of bureaucracy that the regular military doesn't, right? You deal with a level of politics, like the things that we were doing in Afghanistan on my last deployment were landing on on Obama's desk. Like they were landing on POTUS's desk. Our
Wow.
actual missions, the effect that we were having. So you see, and then we have to deal with the State Department, and so you just see kind of behind the veil a little bit, and you're
Sure.
just like, this is gross, bro. I want nothing to do with it anymore.
Yeah.
So when I'm done, I'm done. I'm out, and that was my mindset. It was very selfish, right? I was like, I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to worry about me and nobody else. Well, and then there's like another layer of that. Like I've done hard things, so I don't need to do hard things anymore. I've went through multiple selection processes and all these different courses, and I've beaten the shit out of my body and brain and soul forever. So like now I can take the foot off the gas a little bit. And I don't want to go down the rabbit unless you want to go down the rabbit hole of that conversation. But that, in short, the little voice that says, "Oh, you can sleep in now a little bit because you've
Mm,
done your time. You don't have to do these X, Y, and things. You don't have to hold this kind of standard anymore that you were on a team."
mm-hmm.
You're like, "Yeah, you're right." Well, that same voice is the same voice that will put a gun to your head and tell you to pull the trigger because you're not worth living. Like fast forward 2 years
Yeah.
of that voice, because that voice grows, right? But it always starts off the very simplest thing. It always starts off the small thing. It's okay to skip one workout. You don't have to do a cold, 60 seconds in the cold shower. You don't have to turn that cold. Your muscles are sore. You need heat to recover. All this other bullshit your brain's telling you, right? So that inner critic is telling you, hey, you can, you don't have to do those things. And then fast forward 2 years later, I've got a gun to my head, standing on the beach down here in North Carolina, right, saying that
Sure.
my family, everybody would be better off if I just didn't exist, right? Same voice. Anyways, so the myriad of factors of the reasons why I was, obviously I made it through that. I made through my transition. I got healthy. I started to do things. Life got better, but still I was just kind of, doing my own thing and focused on myself. And then COVID happened, and the cops raided my gym.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that because I was watching that video today, right? Because I noticed I'm just kind of going through your content, and I
Yeah.
noticed, that video had, over 1 million views. So I'm like, holy shit, I should probably give this one a look,
Yeah.
right? So I'm taking a look at it, and one of the things that I was able to pull from that was, I just one of the things you said during that I just loved. You were like, look, you can ruin my life. That's fine. I'll rebuild it.
Yeah.
And just you kind of said that with this confidence because I've always had that mentality, and I've had to do it where I've had to just recover from my life's a shit show. It's time to reset,
Right.
right? And it's just in the context of COVID, it was so frustrating. Not only just to watch that video, but just generally, right? How and you called it out because of how they went about prioritizing what's essential and what's not,
Yeah.
right? Like who gets to eat and who doesn't.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. Oh shit! Oh, sorry, there was a hiccup in the video.
That's right.
But yeah, they made this decision on who's essential, who's not, who gets to eat, who doesn't, and it was just like after that, I had an opportunity to invest in a gym and go into the gym business, and I was just like, nope, gyms, restaurants, never again.
Yeah.
Or never rather,
Yeah.
never. And it's just and one of the things you called out is like, hey, this is my constitutional right. Like I have a right to make a living here.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Constitution guy. I got the We the People here on my arm, and huge fan, right?
And more,
and I'm an
more so,
originalist.
I had employees, right? They all have to get paid.
Yeah.
Their rent's due. Like
Yeah.
this system is still working. You know what I mean? Like this, just because you take, and then the other thing was they wanted me to pay property tax on the times that was closed. They said the tax office hit me and they're like, yeah, you owe this much tax. I'm like, bro, you said I couldn't earn for like 6 months or more.
Right.
And you want me to pay this much tax when like I couldn't earn? Like, oh, that's a different apartment. You got to take that up with somebody else. I'm like, of course, so there's the absurdity of the whole thing. But that's really what woke me up, Denny, was I took a step back and I saw how things were working, how things were playing out. And I realized then that we were the problem. Men in this country were the problem. Now, I won't say, because we all have choices, so I won't say that it's 100% their fault, 100% men's fault. What I will say is we, over a period of time and decades, they have eroded what masculinity, what men are, what the definition of masculinity is. They have eroded the family unit. They have created this thought in people that they shouldn't create families. They shouldn't have any sort of faith, right? They're taking God out of everything. And what happens when you have a fatherless and a godless society, right? You have a bunch of just weak, soft men that are controllable. And you and
We're seeing
I both know I don't know all of your background, but you and I both know if we want to take over a country, are we worried about the elderly? Are we worried about women? Are we worried about children? No.
Right.
So if the powers that be in America wanted to take full control of America, be damned with the Constitution, be damned with our amendments, right? If they want to take control of America, who are the people that they need to essentially nullify?
Us.
The men in the country, military age
Right.
males in this country. And what did they do very slowly over a very long period of time is they just eroded, and then put distractions and just force fed vices and distractions and pleasure. Even to the thing that the tone of, oh man, you just need to be happy. Do whatever makes you happy. So just seek pleasure all the time. Because an alcoholic is very happy when he has a drink, but why is he's never satiated? Why does he maintain alcoholism constantly? He's never satiated because pleasure is a black hole. Doesn't matter how much you use, that you can just keep pouring it in, porn, gambling, finger fucking your iPhone, whatever the vice is, right? Women, booze, etc. It will never
Yeah.
be enough. Purpose is what actually makes you fulfilled. Doing the hard things, really pushing yourself and achieving greatness is what makes you fulfilled, what fills you up and gives you something of value. And with that comes confidence and courage and commitment and discipline and all the things that we need to be setting the standard, to be role models in our lives. So when I looked at that and I saw everything that was happening, I go, holy shit, I'm part of the problem. I have this platform.
Yeah.
I have this platform that I've been creating on for years. And what am I doing with it? Entertaining people?
Yeah.
What the fuck, man? That's what we just need more entertainers out there in the media, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what woke me up is when I saw the country go the way that it was that year. I was just like, holy shit, we just folded.
And the craziest part is that how many people didn't see it? How many people bought into it? How many people were like, no, you know what? The CDC said so. The government says
Absolutely.
so. And look, I'm all about I don't want people dying left and right. But when
Sure.
you're talking, I think when you're talking about, less than, 1/4% of the population or whatever the percentage was, it was just extremely low.
It was basically on
things.
par with the flu, like every year, but the flu not. And if you look at that year, the flu numbers dropped to 0, and the COVID went right to the flu numbers. Nothing really changed, but nobody wants to look at that.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to say that because it's politically incorrect.
Right. And yeah, it was just it was wild to see. And now my new thing to say to people is when you think about the greatest fraud ever perpetrated on this country, I mean that's
In the
it.
world.
That's it.
In the world.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're talking globally.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So now that I have I've been to that place too where I kind of felt like I'm the problem, like I'm part of this weak.
And I say that
culture,
as men our age, right? Like we're the problem. Because the reason why I say that is because if you and I and all the other men, let's just say, shit, man, I'll go low as like 20, 30%. 20, 30% of men in this country were on the level of you and I. This shit would never have happened. And I mean at every level, right? And people in politics, people in communities, whatever. Even at the community level, men would have gotten together like they did in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and go, hey, listen, this is not what's in best interest of our communities. So mayor, town council, whatever it is, like the answer is no. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do this to our businesses. You're not going to do this to our community. You're not going to do this to our schools and our children. The answer is no, collectively. But we collectively didn't have a set of balls because we've been over a period of time, they've been just stripped away and we've been nullified and put to the side.
Yeah. I think the only one that on any level got that right was DeSantis in Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, people were flocking down there because you could actually do shit, right? But yeah, no, what a crazy time that was.
So that radicalized me into this next phase of my life, and that's when I sat down with my wife and I was like, babe, I think I've got to I think I got to start talking about this more. And then that's why, people talk about my YouTube, the NK show or my YouTube channel where they're like, oh, it's not what it used to be. Like, why don't you do like tactical stuff and this and that? And it's like, listen, I don't give a shit about that anymore. There's plenty of people out there
Sure.
doing that. Like, that's not the fight that I'm in anymore. And they're like, well, your views aren't as good. It's like, yeah, I know, because I'm talking about shit that nobody wants to listen to. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
hear about how watching porn, being on OnlyFans in the bathroom while your family's in the other room, jacking off to some chick that doesn't give a shit about you. Like, nobody wants to talk about men that are
Yeah.
living a life of quiet desperation and how they have a family around them. They're lonely, angry, tired, and stressed. Nobody wants to hear that shit, right? They just like,
Right.
give me some
Well,
tactical Tuesday, entertain me,
mhm.
let me just check out, and then not own my shit and actually be better for the people that actually love me.
Yeah. And, I think that kind of leads me into what I want to talk about next was, the Squire program, I think is just awesome, right? I think the
Yes, it
idea
is.
of what you're looking to accomplish there with, these father son teams and strengthening that bond
Yep.
and, kind of allowing the fathers to grow themselves, but to almost like forge, a new generation of stronger, disciplined men. And
Mhm.
I kind of like just the whole idea behind that. So I kind of want you to touch upon
Yeah.
that and tell me a little bit more.
So obviously, so statistically, and I'm not saying that men are a lost cause, because it's funny, you mentioned the guys that men that bought into that, right? Well, 2 years in 2022, we officially launched my coaching platform, the Agogi, in 2020. But it took off. In 2022, it blew up. And I think it blew up because men started to catch on. Wait a minute, I got fucking duped. Like, I think
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, there's so many men in the Agogi that were like, dude, I bought into it for a second. And then 2 years later, I'm like, I'm 50 pounds heavier. And I'm like, what the hell? This was all bullshit. This is,
Yeah.
and so then they go, hey man, it's time to level up my life. I need to get back on track. So they join the Agogi. So I'm not saying that men are a lost cause, because it's a huge part of my life and it's the direction and it's my mission in life at this point in my life, is creating more leaders in the community. But if I look at it from a numbers game, right? You change one man's life. What's the second and third order effects of that right there? Like, 1, 2 times, right? Like, maybe their kids, maybe their family, maybe one friend. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Okay. If you can put a young man on the right path, what is the number game of effect that they will have? It's a compounding interest thing, right? If you
Yeah.
invest 100K at 7% at 18 versus if I invest 100K at 40, what is that going to give me over time? I don't have the
Yeah.
time to make the difference in the interest. That 100K compounding 22 years earlier is going to be astronomically more impact, right? Well, it's the same thing with a young man. If I can get a young man to realize and have rules for his life, to understand what honor is, to understand what core value is, to understand that the mate that he picks, the wife that he picks, is the single most important
Mm.
decision of his life. Your success, your happiness, your bliss, everything evolved with that is who you choose as a spouse. And if you
Yeah.
you make the wrong choice, your life is going to be exponentially harder. And um, and understand and teaching them that happiness is not the way, that hard work is the way, that purpose is the way, that having standards and morals is the way, and having rules to live by is the way. And what true masculinity is, what real manhood is. You change those men's lives, that's how you change the generation. And you know this by this. Take a step back and look at who the government, social media, corporations are targeting. Really, really dive into it. Who are they trying to change? Who are they really trying to affect? Through media, through schools, through go to the aisles of the grocery store. Where are all the candy and the bright colored stuff? Take my son to a grocery store. He's 3 years old. About that, he's about, I don't know, like almost 3 feet high, 3 foot tall. At his eye level is just all shit,
Yep.
bright colored shit. And he's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm like, nah, bro, that's poison.
Yeah.
They're trying to kill you. They're like, well, why would they put it there? I'm like, that's a good question.
For that reason.
So, anyways, when you can take a young man in Squire and you can teach him these things, and you can show him, because these guys come in, like there's a couple guys, maybe one or two out of an entire class that have a little bit of confidence. Maybe they're on a wrestling team, and there's reasons for that, right? They're on a wrestling team. They've been doing jiu-jitsu with their dad for many years. They've been playing football. They've been applying themselves. They've been doing hard things. They understand hard work to get a positive result. But most of the kids, 90+% of the kids, are not confident, not strong, timid, scared.
Yeah.
And when they leave that 12 to 15 hours, they are roaring like lions. They have a different level of confidence because they didn't even know what they were capable of. And that's back on the dad, right? You were not pushing your son to show him what he has right here in the heart. Yeah. So by doing that, so not only are we showing them, the young man, our young heroes, who what they have in the tank, what they're capable of, but we're also showing the father what they are capable of and how, by not pushing them, how they're doing them a disservice, and what that father-son bond needs to be. Denny, I shit you not, I don't cry. I probably cry no less than 4 or 5 times every Squire class. Yeah. Because watching that transition of these little lambs turn into lion cubs roaring, and then watching those belly to belly hugs when after events, and watching that father and son come together like no more, like they've never have been, rekindle a relationship, not just a friendship, but this unbreakable father and son relationship, one that I never had. To watch that happen,
and I think
in one day, watch that happen, and then hear the stories that come after it. Oh man, if I could do nothing else than that, that's all I would do.
Yeah, I think I would probably get a little emotional with that as well, just because, like, one of the things I said to you, I think I sent it to you in a DM. We were talking, and I think we had very similar, just tough upbringings, no father, that sort of thing. So I think if I was to see something like that, actually, I know if I was to see something like that, I'd be overwhelmed with emotion. I just think it's
the feeling is like
so cool.
Yeah, it catches it like takes your breath away. It catches you, you're like, whoo, like it hits you right in the chest.
Yeah, and it's something that gets me excited for myself to eventually be a father, right? That's the ultimate goal here, is to eventually be a father, and kind of do it right, and just.
And what's great about that, and men say, well, I'm not a father yet. Perfect. Unfuck yourself now. Because what happens is, if you don't unfuck yourself now, all the traumas and all the things that you're dealing with, all the bullshit that you have, your bad habits, your vices, your traumas, guess what happens? You just transfer those to your kids.
Sure.
You think you're holding on to them, right? You think that you're holding on to them and you're keeping them tight, so you're not. But the reality is, through how you show up, how you live your life, the standard that you set for yourself, you just pass that to your kids. So whatever you are, they're gonna turn into.
Yeah, and something just to touch upon that, something I've kind of just picked up on is, since making myself just a couple years ago, went through some shit. Mm-hmm. And for me, I had to do a transformation of just a complete reset of who I was and what I was about, and just. I had been this guy before, but fell out of that, essentially out of who I was and these bad habits and
started
these poor characteristics.
I could probably lay it out for you.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's
100%.
Yeah.
And I spent a good 18 months just on my own. I didn't do a Squire program. I didn't do any of this stuff. I just didn't read any books. It was just like, it's time for a change. And came up with this process myself to just get all that shit out, one vice at a time. I haven't completely quit drinking, but I rarely do it.
August this year will be 5 years sober.
Good for you.
Yeah, 5 years.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
And I can see myself going down that path eventually, just because at that rare occasion when I do drink, I'm like, why?
What's the return?
Yeah, and that's just it. There isn't
There
one,
isn't.
and we all know it's poison. We all know it's no good for us, right? Um, so I do think eventually it'll probably just be like, you know what, fuck this. I don't need it
Yeah.
ever. But it was just time to cut it out, or at least cut it down substantially. I had so many other demons that I had to fight as well. But it was an 18-month just process of following the steps that I built this entire podcast around, and executing on those things, and just like you said, like saying fuck easy and just take life head on, and embrace hard.
Yeah.
And
And it's
yeah,
harder.
one of the things
It's a harder life.
it's so much harder, and
But
that's one of the things I like to post is, this is my process. It's easy to implement, but it's hard to do.
but isn't it so
It's
much more
hard.
reward? Isn't the reward so much
Yeah,
greater?
100%. 100%. And another thing I've just taken completely out, and you touched on it earlier, is out of my vocabulary is happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't do anything for the sake of being happy. It's a short term emotion that we all get to feel once in a while, but it's gone so fast. And so I don't focus on happy. It doesn't factor into anything I do. But like you said earlier, purpose and things that, that are meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm chasing every day. And and the work that I do every day, whether it's this podcast or even just my 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I find those things, right? And it's a message you'd like to see more men, especially, get behind.
Absolutely, dude. And I have a 90-minute talk I do that I'll give that talks about hard over easy, and it's a little bit about my story and a little bit about the psychological process of things that you're proud of, etc. But man, if I could get men to just wake up and say if you gotta eat two frogs, which frog do you eat? The bigger one, first. You just do the hard thing first.
Yeah.
And for me personally, man, listen, I struggled, and I still struggle. I'm struggling right now on some things, but if I take a step back, I'm struggling because I've got the hammer, and you mentioned it before. I've got the hammer like floored. Like that freaking gas pedal is I'm pushed through the floor, and I'm like got Flintstone feet, and I'm like it's like pushing through the pavement, right? Like I've got life floored. Like we're doing 100 miles an hour all the time.
Yeah.
But that's a choice, right? That's a choice. If I step back, dude, I have worked so incredibly hard. I've built such an incredible team that my life is pretty fucking easy. Like I've got a huge team out here. I've got a personal assistant. I've got, you know, cleaners and handymen and people that cut my grass. I sleep in a $5,000 mattress with a chili pad,
For you.
keep it at a crisp 68 degrees. You know what I mean? I got a nice house. I got nice houses. Like I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Very easy to take an easy road out. So what does Nick do? Because now I know that being soft and doing easy is not the reward, right? That's not what's going to make you happy. And this is to sum it up. I want everybody listening to think about this. Think about the thing that you're most proud about. The thing in your life that the accomplishment that you have achieved that you're most proud about. It is never something that didn't have adversity or something you had to work for or something you had to study, train, apply yourself for. It's never that time that you were sitting on the beach with a Corona with a little umbrella in there and you're sitting in a lawn chair on the beach. Like it's not very memorable. But when you cross the finish line of an ultra marathon, when you step off the stage of a bodybuilding show and it's done, or you pass some selection process, or you do the MDK project, or you do the Crucible, or you do go through Squire, and then at the end of that, you're like, wow, yes, I did that. I built a business from 400 million to 200 million, or $400 in 10 years to make it 200 million. That took grit. That took work. That was not easy. Those are the things that people are most proud about. So psychologically, if the things that we're most proud about are the hardest things that we do and apply ourselves, why are we choosing easy shit all the time? So what Nick does is now I go chew hard shit. So I go do jujitsu. I do the ice pass. I go sit in a 230-degree sauna and try to like talk to Jesus before I fall out of there. You know what I mean? I literally do things in my life to where I suffer a little bit, because every single time that I suffer a little bit and I do the hard work, when I get done with that iteration, even if it's a 3-minute ice bath at 40 degrees, I did it. How many men in this country did not wake up at 5 a.m. and go do a 3-minute ice bath at 40 degrees? You know what I mean? Like that 3 minutes, I accomplished something. That's a W for me. So every
Yep.
morning, I'm stacking my wins, right? And all of it is doing very, very difficult thing. That's not the standard. That's not the norm. There's an actual physical result that's good for my body, especially with at my age and the amount of pain that I put it through. You know, there's not many 42-year-olds that are training as much as I am,
Yeah.
or even look the way that I do. But I'm trying to build that. We're trying to get guys there. I think like my new thing is like rip dads in 40s. If you're 40, you should have abs, and you should already be a father by 40. But nonetheless, my point is all of it is like I have to fabricate my own hardship because I know the value of that. And anytime that I've taken my foot off the gas with that stuff, like I did last year for Thanksgiving break, we had like 4 days. I mean, we ran our Black Friday sale for a couple of the companies early because our company has grown so much that I wanted to give all the families off for Thanksgiving. I said, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna chill for 4 days. I'm just gonna be with my family. I'm not gonna get up early. I'm not gonna do. We're just gonna be together. At the end of the 4 days, man, I'm like talking to my wife. I'm like, babe, I'm off. Like I feel like depressed. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, I came off that routine. I stopped doing hard shit. I chose easy shit. We watched a bunch of movies. We didn't do shit. You know what I mean? Like I didn't do anything. We just hung out. And it's good in that manner. But I realized I was like, oh, this is the trick. You take your foot off the gas, you start choosing the easy shit, and next thing you know, you start having a little depression, you start hearing some stupid voices, and you just feel lethargic and you just feel less than. And as soon as that happened over, I'm like, oh wait, back on my schedule. I'm like, all right, I feel good again. That dopamine's hit. The winning is hitting. I'm doing
Yeah.
hard shit. I'm accomplishing things. I'm overcoming the adversity in my head.
Yep. Yeah, we just did a recording a few days ago on an episode of something very similar, more geared towards just like getting your ass up and moving around, right? Because I'm a firm believer. I'm 41. I'm a firm believer. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? You have to keep your body moving. You have to keep your body, the blood pumping through your muscles and moving and all of that stuff. But you know, one of the things we touched upon was just the excuse of I don't have enough time, and it was just one of those things that it triggers me every time I hear it because there's so much time in a day. I mean, we're all busy, right? We all have shit going on, but if you prioritize anything, you're going to find the time to do it. So don't tell me you don't have time. Just tell me that
I will
you
rip.
don't want to
I
do
will.
it.
If somebody tells me that, I will rip your shit apart. Let me dive
Yeah.
into your day. Let me dive. Of all people, let me dive into your day, and I will rip your world apart. And Denny, I actually do that for my clients when they come in here. So my tier one clients. So we have 3 tiers in the Agogi. Tier one clients work with me, and a lot of that has to do with business, life stuff too. But we're scaling their enterprise. We're scaling whatever that it is, um, and in collapsing time, right? We're trying to make this thing happen faster for them, which we do. And so what I'll do is I'm going to give the secrets away. I tell people all the time, I'm like this. There's no secrets. Like I'll tell you exactly how I do it and what I do. Um, but I get them to write their top 4 priorities on the board. Okay. And then we rate them 1 to 4 because I don't want a middle number. I don't want 1 through 5. I don't want it to be a 3. You know what I mean? So let's go 1 through 4. And then we rate, so we whatever their priorities are, and I almost can guess their priorities almost immediately because most people's priorities are the same. And so we write them up there, we rate them, and then they have a notebook, and when they get here, they get a notebook, and so when they get the notebook, I said, okay, What time do you wake up? What time do you go to bed? And I want to every 15-minute increment in this in between. I don't want a block schedule. I don't want to be like, well, I do emails from 1 to 4, or I'm sitting at my desk, or this is my creative time, this to this. No, 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 no. I want to know what your schedule is every 15-minute increment. What are you actually doing? And they write that shit down and they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah.
So I do have 3 extra hours in a day
There's
or
a
whatever
lot
the
of
fuck it is.
bullshit. There's a lot of bullshit in your schedule that does not give you a return of investment and is not congruent with the priorities that you put on the board. And this is the reason why you feel upset, anxious, angry, depressed, because you're not living congruently with your top 4 priorities in your life. So we got to realign this shit. Realign your routine to align with your priorities. And I'm not saying that your priorities mean don't work, because obviously money, financial freedom is on everybody's. I don't think there's been one person that's come in here and hasn't brought up some sort of financial aspect that's one of their top 4 priorities. So it's not
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
so that's what we
No,
do.
that's
So
that.
we realign that. We realign that. We cut the fat out of them, out of their life, both physically and figuratively. And all of a sudden they have more times to date their wife. They have more time to go to the gym. They have more time for personal development.
Right. And that's one of the things that I tell like just people all the time is if you're working on just generally, right? If you generally just say, I'm gonna be better, I'm gonna focus on just all these values and all these changes I want to make, somewhere along the line I feel like you're gonna get it that fitness is a part of that. Fitness is probably the catalyst, in my opinion, anyways, to getting all these other things in order. Because for me, fitness is so much more mental than it is physical.
Mm-hmm.
So when I miss a workout, but I still do all the other stuff that's important to me, I still feel a little bit off mentally. I just don't feel with it. So that's just, one of the things that I just try to like work in as far as, priorities. And I feel like once you get that intact, that everything else kind of follows suit
Absolutely.
with that, or
Absolutely.
in conjunction with that. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about was I followed the last MDK project class pretty closely.
Let's go. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So prior to that, I actually became friends with Joe Luplo.
Luplo. He's one of my coaches in the Agogi. Yeah. Yeah. Class
Yeah.
16,
So I
class
kind of
16 honor grad, 275 Ranger. Awesome fucking dude.
yep
Yeah.
yep. Just man. So I kind of became friends with him. So I was like texting him a little bit throughout the class and all that. And dude, how about that guy with the fucked up hand that finished? Little guy. He
Chang.
wasn't a big guy, but he was. Yeah.
20 years
So I'm
old.
like
20 years old. Broke his hand. I think he broke his scaphoid. Oh, I want to say less than 24 hours in.
Wow.
And he said,
and it's 72 hours.
It's 75 hours, and less than a day
75.
in, he broke his wrist during pugil sticks, or his actual scaphoid, right, and it's by his thumb.
Wow, yeah. But I'm texting Joe. I'm like, tell that motherfucker not to quit.
Bro,
There was
no quit. There was no quit in that kid, man. There was no quit in that kid.
I loved it. I loved watching it. And then it was funny also after, and this is what I kind of wanted to ask you about as well, was I want to hear about your response to, the criticism of the alpha male boot camps, right?
I just recorded a video on that yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, did you? Did you post it?
No, it's not. We recorded it yesterday. It will post soon.
Okay.
Yeah. So my business partner Bedros, he's one of the owners in the Agogi, and he is the actual owner of the MDK project. I don't know where they think Nick's not getting paid $18K. I don't know where.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an instructor, dude. I don't own anything. I show up and then I do my thing, and I put on my costume for the 75 hours, and then I take it off, and then we're all friends. But legitimately, he owns the MDK project. It's a beautiful thing. He asked me to come. I knew about it for a long time. He asked and said, hey, would you like to come out as a guest instructor? And I said, absolutely. And I came out to class 16. Joe's class was my first class. and I saw the work that was being done behind the scenes. I saw the transition that I was making in men, and I was sold because it aligned with my mission. I
Yeah.
said, I'm in, man. I'm in. I saw all of the tears. I saw all the breakthroughs, and
Yeah.
uh, I was like, yep, this is I got to be a part of this. And a lot of people are like, well, I used to have a lot of respect for Nick until he got involved with the project. I'm like, you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. Um,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, that's okay. I don't need their respect. Um,
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up because you know one of the things I saw, I don't remember where I saw it, but Bezos was even talking about like he's like I don't after you pay for this shit, like he's like I don't make that much money off of it.
bro,
You know, this
to,
is like kind of a purpose driven event.
to be honest, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of like I've seen behind the curtain.
Yeah.
There ain't much left over. I mean, the insurance to run that thing alone, I mean, it's ran in
Oh, I
California
can't even
too. So you're
imagine.
like, you got to talk, like, you got to think about all the instructors that go out there, all of the hotels, all of the transportation, all of the food, all the locations. Like, bro,
Yeah.
it's, it's a hefty price tag, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
But what
Yeah.
they don't also know is with that 18K, they get a 12, they're part of a brotherhood and they get a 12-month mastermind after that. So it's like, the project doesn't stop at 75 hours. We always say like, this is when and to be, like to kind of tie it into where we're at, these men show up needing something, they gain
Yeah.
it there, but it really starts at the end of the project, right? Like their chapter 2, their version 2.0 really starts after graduation, because now the standard has been set, right? Like just like Squire, these are the rules, these are the core values that you have to follow. This is your motto. You have to be this type of guy. You can't be the guy, you know, arguing with your Uber Eats guy because he right turn at Coralini and he was supposed to make a left, so now he's 5 minutes late with your fucking burrito. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be that guy anymore. You have to go date your
Yeah.
wife. You got to wake up early. You got to take care of yourself. You got to invest in your personal growth. Like, the standard is so much higher, and that's where the follow up of all of that comes into play. And the reality is, dude, like, why is it that there's no graduates from the project, like on Fox News and on these YouTube channels and all?
Never.
Where are the people that go through, right? Like, why haven't they been
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, fuck the project and fuck this thing, and Steve's an asshole and all, you know what I mean? Like,
Hey,
Nick's an
Steve.
asshole. Like, nobody that actually is involved comes on any channel anywhere and it
Yeah.
speaks ill of it.
Yeah, and I've noticed that, and I've seen Steve. Obviously, Steve's an intense guy, at least from what I can tell. I don't know him. I've talked to him a bit, and I'm gonna have him on as well at some point.
He is an intense guy when he turns it on. He Whatever, he plays a role.
Yeah, no, and that's just it, right? Like, I mean, we went through military training, and it's like these guys don't actually hate you. They're helping you. They're trying to build you up into
Not
something
to
here.
let the cat out of the bag. We have one more course, and then the Crucible kind of takes over.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I've heard that.
yeah, and so, uh, dude, like, honestly, like, I'm from hour one, I'm looking at him. I'm like, dude, I wish all these guys would graduate.
Yeah,
I want them all to win.
it's
Like, I'm there.
it's amazing to
Yeah.
me when they drop like after 2
Bro,
days or whatever. I'm
it
like,
breaks
what are
my
you
heart. It
doing?
breaks my heart, bro. Every time
Oh,
and I sit there and I'm like, you sure, man? Like, like, everything comes to an end. You know what I mean? Like, you can't
yeah.
stop the clock. I'm just saying.
I said to Joe, I'm like, dude, you'd have to carry me out of there in a body bag. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And look, I
But
haven't been through it,
it does
right?
mentally
But
break
I'm
you.
just
And
saying,
what else? And even
yeah,
the guys who have quit, like, I've got some clients that rang the bell, that are in the Agogi, and we're working on some other things. They don't speak ill of it. They're like, you know what? And I
right.
know they might be initially sad that they got caught at that level or whatever. And I said, listen, I want you to change the way that you're thinking about it. I want you to think about it like this. There are very few men who know what their breaking point is. You just pushed yourself to your breaking point. Now you know where your upper limit is, and now you can work to move it up, right? Like, that's not a bad thing. That's a gift. You pushed
Right.
yourself to basically failure. Like, I can't mentally, I tapped out. So because you tapped out right here, this is where you're at and this is where you have to go past. That's a
Yep.
blessing, man. And
100%.
all of them, anybody that's that's rung the bell, like I got an amazing man, John, who's in the Agogi, and he's an older guy, and he rang the bell on one of the classes, and he's like, man, I tell you what, like yeah, even though that I didn't make it, he's like, I got so much out of it. I don't regret it at all. One point, he's still in the Agogi. He's actually just he's about to quit his corporate job and start his own business with him and his wife in his 50s.
Wow.
He's jacked and lean. He looks great, man. He's one of the best human beings. But anyways, like that's what's the reality is. No one actually wants the real story. They just want tantalizing headlines and all the YouTube videos out there that made it because CNN and Fox did it. They just jumped on the bandwagon. They took the alpha male boot camp thing, which is not what it is. It is not an
Right.
alpha male boot camp. It's ridiculous. Like what you see on social media is 1 or 2% of the 75 hours. You see the tantalizing things that are going to get attention on social media. That's what we show you.
And that's kind of what you should expect to see.
Right.
Right.
Like, what do you want us to film a bunch of grown men sitting around crying about our traumas and the worst shit that ever happened in our life? It's not really entertaining. You know what I mean? Like that's not what people are going to watch and go, oh, ouch, this is uncomfortable for me to watch. You know what I mean? Like it's uncomfortable for us to be in the room because there's some really horrible shit that happens. And what I didn't realize up until the project was this. I didn't know that 1 in 4 men, or 1 in 3 men are physically abused as a child. And I've multiple classes I've counted, right? I'm like, yep, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1 in 4 men blew my mind have been sexually molested, sexually abused as a child. 1 in 4 men.
Wow.
And we hear about these things and how these men hold on to these things and how they don't tell anybody. So there's this whole underlying thing. Even the people that are talking shit about it, I look at them, and listen, they say not to judge a book by a cover, but if you go on YouTube and you look at the guy talking, like it's very clear what their lifestyle is like, right?
Right. No, yeah. And that's just it. Like the people that are, like we talked about, choosing hard, they're not the ones criticizing, what you guys are looking to accomplish and what you guys are doing. It's the fat, lazy guy in his grandmother's basement, right? It's that's who's criticizing you guys. And
what's
it's just,
and what's crazy, they said something about, I learned a new term, grifter. I didn't know what a grifter was, but they're like, oh, you guys are just grifting on scamming vulnerable men. And this is what it comes down to. You're using your military whatever to do this, and it's because you're not successful, so you have no choice but to do this. I'm like, listen, first of all, fuck stick. I run 2 8-figure businesses and a 7-figure business. I don't even have 6-figure businesses anymore. So yeah, project or no project, I don't need the project. I do that because it's part of the mission of, like what I get paid for the project. It's funny. I actually lose money every single class because I'm there for a week. Yep. I lose money. It costs me personal money to go out there because I'm not here running my businesses. I'm not conducting the sales. I'm not doing all the things that I'm running with all my other 3 businesses.
Right.
And the other thing is they're like, well, why don't you just join the military? Well, Denny, you and I both know when you leave the military with trauma.
Yeah, no, 100%.
With
100%.
With the project, you leave the project in 75 hours having dealt with your trauma and having a plan to continue to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's a fix, not to break you. The purpose of the military is to train, equip their people to go fight and win our nation's battles. That's their purpose. Their purpose is not to make you a man. Their purpose is not to make you the greatest leader in the world. Their purpose is to train you, equip you to go fight and win our nation's wars. That's it.
Right.
That's their purpose.
Right. And one of the things I was going to touch upon too is just in the context of men in general, but again, as vets and leaving the military, we experience this. I think at just an intense level is that I think a lot of men just struggle generally with identity, right?
Right.
And I think we tie our identity to just like one or two particular things, whether it's our career, which was the military, and then next, we'll tie our identity to, our W-2 or mental health. We struggle with mental health and releasing those emotions and dealing with them. And yeah, no, I got to check that book out. I haven't I
I
haven't
wrote
yet,
the
but
book on it. That's literally what happens. And you know what's crazy? It happens at
yeah,
every walk of life. It's not just the military, it's law enforcement,
right,
it's people in hospitals, it's mothers that have been career mothers for 20 years until their kids move out. And they're like, "Well, my whole identity was wrapped up in being a mom, and now I'm not really like that kind of mom anymore. All like the kids are gone. Who am I?" Like we always wrap up our identity into what we do instead of who we are. And
yes,
anytime you do
yep,
that, there's a huge transition outside of that. Yeah. But yeah, I wrote that book. That's
yeah.
the Excommunicated Warrior, the 7 stage transition. It talks about that exact thing in the 7 stages of transition.
Yeah, that's definitely a struggle I had too, getting out and getting home from Afghanistan. And I talk about it in one of my earlier episodes when we discussed where I discussed PTSD and
Mm-hmm.
just all my struggles with that. I was telling my audience, I drank 6-8 months straight
Mm-hmm.
every single day because I was like, who the fuck am I now,
Yep.
right? And then several years later, just going through some personal shit, like again, who the fuck am I? And I feel like you talked about it, but we go through these in stages and it can happen more than once. And that identity crisis, if you want to call it. And um, I think so much of it is stems from mental health and men just using that as a strength instead of a weakness to go deal with it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've always said. I said, it confuses me, especially with the veteran community or any really community, but I'll speak to the veteran community here and you can take it as an analogy wherever you're whatever you're wherever you come from. But you get in the military and these guys are like warriors, right? They go after like you and I went to Afghanistan, we pushed the fight to the enemy, chasing IED guys, whatever the deal was, right? We're chasing bad guys. And in my opinion, truly evil people, right? Really, really, really evil people. And um and we're warriors, right? We're warriors. Chest beaten warriors, badasses. And then the enemy doesn't kill us. And we come back to America and our kryptonite, what crushes us, what breaks us is being a civilian.
Yeah, I've looked at it that way too, and it's like
Wait,
fucking crazy.
wait a minute, dude. So the enemy couldn't break you, but just life, just being a civilian, being
Yeah,
home, being free, being in the country of America, that's your kryptonite. That's what breaks you. Like, I'm not buying it, bro. Like, we got a perception problem
yeah,
here. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, why aren't we taking
yeah.
the same tenacity that we had as war fighters and then bringing that to back to be successful in our life?
Yeah, and I think maybe that the people that were built that way are they bring that home and they carry that on and continue to to put that same level
I
of
didn't.
intensity or work ethic. No, I didn't either, but you knew how. Does that make
Yeah, but
right?
I needed to get help. I needed to get help.
Sure.
You
No,
know what
and
I
I
mean?
did too.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
had to go to the vet center.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I had to go to the vet center,
but that's
counseling,
my
all that
point is
shit.
I think that we lose that perception, right? We lose like you said, we
Hmm.
lose the identity of who we are. And the reality is this is like, no, dude, you're still that war fighter. Why aren't you? And that's what I had to
Yeah,
pick up. I'm like, wait a minute, why am I not attacking my life the same exact way that I did when I was in? And when I started to, that's
yeah,
when things started to turn around. Because what happens is you
yeah,
go over there, you're like, you're the badass, you're doing the job, but you come back here and now you're the victim because the VA is not treating you right, your wife's not treating you right, your employer's not treating you right. So fucking what? Fix your shit.
yeah,
Take ownership of your life. Who cares? You're just going to be a victim. I love what Jason Redman says. You're going to be a victim or you're going to be a victor.
yeah.
I choose to be the victor every day. Bad shit's going to happen
Yeah,
to me.
no.
Bad shit happens to me all the time. Fucking happening to me right
Yeah.
now. There's probably some shit going on outside that's bad that's happening to me right now or on social media I don't even know about. Guess what? Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Nick's going to win in the end. You can talk all the shit. You can do other things. You can come against me. Doesn't matter. I'm going to win. That's it.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, I haven't followed you for the longest time, maybe a couple of years. But one of the reasons that I started to follow you, one of the things I like the most is, and one of the things decided to do when I decided to do this podcast was that, like, your vulnerability, right?
Mm-hmm.
You put it out there, and I think that's what allows that connection with the audience is, showing them that you're human. And I think you do a good job with that. I was looking at, I don't know if it's pinned on your Instagram or what, but a picture of you, yeah, an older picture where you're kind of chubby and you're like just
Fat.
out of shape, and then
I was
the
fat,
one
bro.
right
Just say
next to
it.
it,
Just fat.
yeah, no, it was you were fat, but right next to that is a picture of you fucking ripped,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, but it allows people to connect, I think, and this is what I did, this is what I looked like, and this is what I look like now, and I just think, and I think people that like yourself and myself, like creating influence and motivation, I think we like to get that as well, right? We like to feel that influence and that motivation as well as just, you know, absorbing it and, or excuse me, putting it out there. We like to absorb it as well. And it's like one of those things where, like real recognize real,
Yep.
right?
And I think that also you that needs to be a test for yourself, right? When you see something like that, do you feel envy? Do you feel jealousy? Or do you feel excitement and happiness for the other person?
Right. Right.
So like,
And
so for me,
I can say for myself, I love seeing that
I
shit.
want people to
You
win,
know,
bro. Like I want everybody to win.
100%.
Like, and the only reason I say the things that I say and I share the things that I share is because I want you to make the difference. I want you to win in life. When I get text messages like today, I'll pull one up. At a tier one client messaged me. This is what he said. He said, growing this week. This is the busiest week tax season, speeding up onboarding of a new employee, contracts, etc. Market is dropping, still locking in new clients, tax reviews for clients, normal headaches. He's like, damn, dude, I am growing this week and crushing it. I'm like,
That's it.
yes, dude. Yes. He's like,
Yeah, that's
he's
it.
like,
Like,
I had a great time with my wife. He goes, I hit all of my macro, I hit all of my protein. He's like, it's been crazy. He's like, dude, but I am having a huge growth week mentally. I'm like, fuck yes, dude. Good for you.
yeah.
I
Yep.
want people,
And
I
that,
want these dads to win, man. I want these men to win.
yeah, absolutely. And again, I've been at this podcast thing for just a few months, and every so often, once a week or so, or whatever it is, I get a message in my inbox. Hey, I loved your episode on X, Y, and Z. I loved your message. Keep doing it. And it's like, fuck, like that's exactly why I decided to do this. And it's funny that I say that because it's you mentioned Bedros earlier. Uh, Probably like 6 months ago, I was one of those guys in his inbox saying, "Hey, man, I have this idea. I'm not sure what to do." And he was like, I told him I was writing a book, which I am. And he's like, you know what? Do the book. He's like, but do the podcast first. Get the podcast together. Put out good content on YouTube. Do the book as well, but do that first. So I wasn't even really thinking much about a podcast. And then after talking with him, it's like here I am.
Well, and the
So
reason for that
I
is,
gotta give him a little credit
yeah,
for
the
that.
reason for that, he's a smart man. And I actually did a year of coaching back in 2020 with him. I was one of his domination year clients, and that's how we became friendship. We became friends when COVID happened, and then like 7-8 months later, I signed up with him, um, and then fast forward to this year, we're business partners. So that's
Nice.
how things work. But he's what he's doing, and this is, listen to this, anything that you're doing, you have to have an audience, right? You have to have somebody to sell to. So like the problem with somebody who just doesn't have an audience, they write a book, unless you have contacts where you're going to go with the traditional publishing route, like, and if you're going to self-publish, self-publish to what, to who are you going to tell
Right.
about it? You are the entire publishing
Right.
company. So that means you have to have a marketing strategy, you have to have dollars behind it, you have to have all these different things. So what you should do is do a podcast, do a show on YouTube, right? Gain a following, start sharing the messages, the chapters that are in the book, your message around the book, whatever that is, gain that influence, And then when you launch the book, you have somebody to push it to.
Right. Right. And that makes so much more sense. And I was able to kind of piece that together. At first, I didn't look at it that way. I was just like, oh, okay, he's a smart guy. He's net worth $200 million. I think I'm just gonna listen
Yeah,
to him.
right.
But then after thinking about it that way, I was able to be like, oh yeah, who am I gonna write a book for?
Right.
But yeah, it's just it's just one of those cool lessons that I learned, and good advice I think so
If you
far.
write it
Anyways,
today and then you keep doing the podcast, in a year you'll rewrite it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was planning to write it for like another
Yeah.
year or so,
And you should. And
but
everybody out there, like, here's the thing: when you write a book, I do a little talk about like interpersonal value, enterprise value, and then there's this thing called eternal value that I learned from a friend, Nick Long. And when you write a book, you're creating eternal value, right? Like, long after I'm gone, that book will be somewhere in the webs, on the shelf somewhere, and I'll be dead, and somebody will read that up, and it might save somebody's life. That's creating eternal value. And we should all work
love
towards
that.
creating eternal value in our life. When we're after gone, what are we? And this is the reason why we look at like Squire program, investing in the youth, investing in the men, because why is it, and this is a good way to wrap up, why is it that every generation of man is having to go through all of these struggles, refigure out how to be a good man, high value individual again, like by themselves? Why are we not having a transfer of generational wisdom from generation to generation? Why are you and I having to learn these lessons now at our age versus our father passing them down to us because he wasn't there? So we had to figure it out right now. And then I have kids. You're going to have kids one day, right? And then what are we going to do? We're going to let them live our life. But every generation, there's been this like, I have to reset and start over from scratch. And that's
Yeah,
part of the problem. And that's what the opposition wants.
yeah,
We have to fix this in men so that we can have a transfer of generational wisdom from one generation to the next, so that they are exponentially better than us. My son's going to have struggles. Life is with struggles. He's going to struggle. He's going to have highs and lows. But what he will have is a set of foundational rules and core values, and understanding how to be a man when he's a man, how to treat a woman, understands the decisions that he make create his outcomes. His choices will create his outcomes. He'll understand that it's important to choose hard, etc. So I think that is really the big why behind it, is we have no transfer of generational wisdom, and that needs to be fixed.
yeah. No, I think that's the perfect way to end, just based on the overall substance of this whole discussion, right? It's just there's been such a breakdown, in the family and society. So you're not seeing those things trickle down generation to generation. But I couldn't agree more that it's so important to get back to that, to just, again, fathers being fathers and strong males being strong males, and
That's right.
getting back into that dominant, I don't want to say dominant role, but that strong role for the family. So, yeah, perfect way to end it. But I mean, again, man, can't thank you enough. I know you're probably one of the busiest guys I see and follow on Instagram. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. Hopefully, we can chat again in the future,
Hope so.
and build a friendship here. I really appreciate your time and your support with our channel as well. And yeah,
Go share this shit with your friends.
um, oh, I'm gonna share this
No,
everywhere.
no, no, the listeners.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, just appreciate it. It's been awesome, and I'm not sure if I sent you some swag. I'm not sure if you
Yeah, I
got
did.
it.
I did. At the house. I
Okay, good,
appreciate that.
good, good. Um, yeah, man. I guess only ask of you, and if you can't, that's fine. But just to follow back on Instagram on the
I got you.
podcast page and my personal
I got
page.
you.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. It's really really cool to chat with you. I've been following you for a few years. So.